channel. Up next, border battles.
Within sight of shining holiday lights, border bandits are about to go beyond robbery to the atrocity of assaulting a 13-year-old girl.
I could hear the young daughter yelling, "Mom, Mom, please help me, Mom."
3 men, U.S. undercover officers, face a critical decision. Do they let the international boundary bar them for protecting an innocent victim?
I thought, there's a child. It's a child being sexually assaulted by these bandits. I had to do something.
The border, the lawless frontier between Mexico and the U.S., where human traffickers, drug cartels, bandits, and killers ply their trade. And facing this invading army is a thin line of valiant U.S. law enforcement officers. Their stories now on Border Battles. It's a midnight clear. A few yards north of the Mexican border, 3 rough, shabby-looking men huddle. Despite outward appearances, these are not 3 illegal border crossers waiting for a coyote. These are veteran San Diego police undercover officers, Tony Puente, Manny Lopez, and Eddie Cervantes. Battle-hardened members of the elite border area robbery force, the unit they themselves call B.A.R.F. These are lawmen who hide in plain sight in the guise of illegal aliens.
Very cold that evening. I recall I was wearing a knit hat, and we always wore 2 layers of clothing, just like the migrant farm workers would when they crossed the border. But it was still very cold that night.
B.A.R.F's deployment mission is not about interdicting border crossers looking for work in El Norte.
Our job was to catch these low-life people who were preying on these poor people that were crossing the border.
They were being robbed, females were being raped. If husbands or boyfriends tried to intervene or protect their spouses, they would get shot or killed.
The officer's strategy is to appear to be illegals and to stake themselves out as bait for bandits. Bait that bites. To spring their trap on the criminals, the lawmen's preparations have to be meticulous.
Part of our grooming was to wear old clothing, not even to shower before coming to work. Hopefully, we'd work in our yard all day and got a little smelly and sweaty, and that's the way you'd come to work. Old clothing, smelly and sweaty.
They say clothes make the man, but it's what these officers carry under their disguises that give them their punch.
My weapon was a snub-nosed .38, which I carried in the small of my back. There was also a customized shotgun, which was worn under the armpit. It probably wasn't longer than maybe 2 feet in length, and it fit right under your arm. Very easily concealed by wearing a jacket over it.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Tonight, 2 days after Christmas, the 3 undercover officers take up position at the U.S. end of a Tijuana bridge overlooking a drainage tunnel.
Yeah.
The officers operate by joining up with groups of aliens crossing the border and waiting for bandits to strike.
As we sat next to the fence line, there was an opening in the fence. As we looked over, we noticed under the bridge, there were people gathering.
The group of aliens is staging on the Mexico side, waiting to cross. The robbery force's jurisdiction ends at the Mexican border, and by law, they can make arrests only on the U.S. side.
This was an area where the bandits knew where the migrant workers were gathering prior to crossing over to the American side. So they were easy pickings for them. They had them located, they had them cornered, so it was easy for them to rob them.
For the bandits, it's a target-rich opportunity.
All of a sudden, young, teenage-type individuals walk into the tunnel, breaking glass, hitting people, pushing people, and making demands for money so they can buy some booze, some beer. And then as they're going through the crowd, pushing them around, I mean, we just noticed that no one's doing anything to defend themselves.
Behind the men under attack are two helpless women. One of them named Rosa Lugo.
At that time, I heard one of the bandits yell, "Oh, look what I have here. I got an old whore." And then I could hear Rosa saying, "Leave us alone, leave us alone." Next, I heard Rosa saying, "Get your hands off of me, get your hands off of me, leave me alone."
The other woman is actually a young girl, Rosa's 13-year-old daughter, Esther.
Then I heard another one say, "Look, I have a young whore here. Let me have her." I could see the group had separated the two women, and I could hear the young daughter yelling, "Mom, Mom, please help me, Mom." We could see that none of the group of men would go to the assistance of the ladies. I think it got to all of us.
In Tony Puente, the emotions of a brother and a father boil up.
I thought, there's a child. It's a child being sexually assaulted by these bandits. What goes through my mind was, I have 4 younger sisters, and I have a daughter who's 10 years old. And the screams might have been my daughter's. 10 years old, that's how young his voice sounded. I had to do something.
Now, the San Diego Police Special Undercover Officers must choose between obeying the letter of international law and the fate of a young girl mere yards away in Mexico. For 3 San Diego Border Area Robbery Force undercover officers, it's the anguish of hearing the desperate screams of the helpless Rosa Lugo and her daughter Esther just across the Mexican border. By international treaty, the officers are helpless to reach across the border and intervene.
Rosa Lugo was protesting and screaming, but nobody was doing anything. And we're sitting on the other side with orders not to cross into Mexico.
Though not easy to discern, the screams are now only those of young Esther, as her mother Rosa has fallen into prayer, begging for a miracle.
Maddie, Tony, and I, we're just kind of looking at each other like, what do we do?
The seconds drag by as the officers grapple with their badges and their humanity.
You can't allow a lady and her daughter to be sexually assaulted by gang members. You just can't do that.
I think it just got to a point where we all reacted simultaneously, where we all said, you know what, enough's enough, we're going in.
Manny Lopez, the group leader, makes the call.
And Manny said, yeah, let's go. I don't know what it was, instinct or whatever. We all jumped through the hole in the fence and went after the bandits that were on these 2 ladies.
We identified ourselves as police officers, policías, and we rushed the tunnel. And obviously the element of surprise caught everybody off guard. And the illegal aliens in the tunnel, they pretty much didn't do anything. They just pretty much froze.
Lopez and Cervantes go for the bandits, brutalizing Rosa.
I remember that I was in front, and I was just pushing people out of the way. I happened to have a sawed-off shotgun on me that night. So I took it out as I was going through the tunnel. So I'm sure when a guy saw me with a sawed-off shotgun, he thought, who's this guy? And then I hit him with the shotgun in the top of the head, and he fell.
Manny Lopez goes after Rosa's other assailant. The officers try to control their rage, while the bandits struggle desperately for their lives.
We're on them real quick. Your first instinct is to try to thump them or beat them up. But being police officers, we can't really just beat up on people like that.
As Officer Tony Puente charges into the tunnel, he carries the thought of his own sisters and daughter. Now he turns that outrage on the bandit, savaging a 13-year-old girl.
I grabbed the young man that had his hands all over the front of the young lady's breast. I went for him, grabbed him, but it was a struggle in the darkness. You really don't want to get too close. You don't know if they have a knife or a gun. So you try to keep at arm length, trying to struggle, trying to handcuff people. The police training comes back to you saying, use that force only necessary to effect the arrest. So you're all arms and legs, you just want to grab them and handcuff them. But these guys are fighting. They're swinging, and I'm trying to control them. You go all out, fists, kicks, whatever it takes to take people down.
Puente grapples with Esther's attacker. The would-be rapist breaks free.
He slipped out of my grasp. I started chasing him out of the tunnel, onto the streets, and continued chasing him, and I had my gun out. I'm yelling at him, stop, stop, or I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna shoot you. And he's yelling, leave me alone, I didn't do anything, I didn't do anything.
This is no longer just a matter of stepping over the border. Tony Puente is now deep into the dark Tijuana night, gun drawn, pursuing a fugitive. Officer Tony Puente of San Diego's Special Undercover Border Robbery Force is now in hot pursuit of a potential rapist in Tijuana, far beyond his U.S. jurisdiction.
I gave chase, and we hit the street lights. And I continued chasing him, yelling, I'm gonna shoot you if you don't stop. Police officer, hoping he would stop. I really wasn't gonna shoot him, but trying to scare him. He continued running, saying, and yelling over his shoulder, leave me alone, leave me alone. I wasn't gonna leave him alone, I wanted him. I thought, these are the lowest of the low. It really upset me. You wanna grab these guys and take them in the dark and just play catch up with them, you know? Just pound them, just pound them. 13-year-old little girl, I couldn't understand them.
Puente continues his pursuit farther into Tijuana and away from the U.S. As fellow officers Cervantes and Lopez try to take control of the chaotic situation in the drainage tunnel.
They're trying to fight so they can get away. So obviously, sometimes you have to use some necessary force just to overcome the resistance. And once they know that you're in control, then they'll succumb to the request. And that's basically what happened here. The two that we had were trying to get away. They were resisting. They didn't want to comply. So we had to use a little bit of force just to be able to control them and handcuff them and get them out of the tunnel.
Puente's chase leads him deeper into Tijuana, where now he encounters an unexpected handicap. His disguise includes cheap plastic platform shoes that aren't built for running.
I had to kind of look like maybe a modern-day young man trying to cross the border. So I was wearing these kind of platform shoes we had bought at the Salvation Army store. They're kind of a plastic, cheap, make-believe type of platform shoes. And I was wearing them that night, part of the character I was trying to play. And my feet were killing me. I ran as fast as I could, but now I know how ladies feel like when they have high heels. These things were terrible. I continued chasing him. At one point, he turned almost his head completely around and said, "Leave me alone." That's when I noticed this kid wasn't more than 14, 15 years old. The next screams out of his voice were, "Mama, Mama, you the man, you the man." Same as Esther was saying in the tunnel, just like a little child yelling for his mother.
They're real brave when they're preying on people. It angers you, it upsets you, because they're preying on poor people, defenseless people. But then when you have the upper hand on them, all of a sudden, "Don't kill me, I'm a coward. Mom, help me." Now they're asking for help.
At that time, I realized I was in his turf, his neighborhood, his family may be close by, so I had to get back to the border before they came out of their homes.
Puente's more than just on the wrong side of the border. Here, he could face overwhelming odds. So it's time to give up the chase and get out alive. In pursuit of an attempted rapist, San Diego undercover officer Tony Puente has let emotion carry him deep into the warren of Tijuana's back alleys. Now he knows he must back out.
Then it dawned on me, I'm in Mexico, in his neighborhood where the robbers live at, and he's yelling for his mother. I stopped, I froze, I turned around, I said, I gotta get back. Ran back to the border, back under the tunnel, back to the American side.
Waiting for Puente is a sight some might say is miraculous.
By the time I got back, Manny Lopez, Eddie Cervantes, and our backup team had arrived. And they were bringing some witnesses and bringing the mother and the daughter back to the American side. And I saw they had two people in custody with handcuffs on. And these were two of them that were attacking the mother.
Silence had fallen on this Christmas time midnight.
They're looking down at this lady, Rosa. Rosa was on her hands and knees. Her daughter was behind her, hugging her around from the back and still crying. The mother had Manny Lopez's left hand.
Tony?
She was kissing his hand, saying a prayer in Spanish, and thanking God for sending Manny to her and her daughter.
She took my hand and she kissed my hand. And so I picked her up and I just was kind of overwhelmed with her emotions.
We were all mesmerized by this. We're standing there looking. And Manny kept saying, "Let go, lady, let go of my hand." And nobody would say anything. Just kept looking at this lady, and she wouldn't get up. Manny was trying to walk away, and she was holding his hand. Apparently, she hadn't finished her prayer. She wanted to continue her prayer and kiss his hand while she was thanking God for sending Manny.
She kept referring to a miracle and that felt that God had sent us there. And she just kept thanking God and thank you, Jesus, and thank you, God. She was just so forever grateful that we had rescued them.
Manny finally broke away and said, "Get these people into the cars and let's get back to the substation." So finally, he was able to break away from her. But all the way back, she was saying, "Thank you, thank you." She would look at all of us and say, "Thank you, thank you. God sent you. God sent you."
Had we not been there, that little girl would have been raped. And who knows what else would have happened. Rosa probably would have been raped. And nobody would have done anything to help them at all. So, is that a miracle? Yeah, could be. You try to tell Rosa Lugo that that wasn't a miracle, she's not going to buy it, you know? So I would go with about as closest to a miracle as you can get.
Miracle or not, there is one more surprising turn of events.
It didn't cause an international incident. We thought it would. Once we had them in custody, we called the Mexican authorities. We explained to them that this sexual assault was occurring in their jurisdiction, and we explained to them all the details what had occurred. They were more than happy to take the victims and the witnesses and the suspects back to Mexico, where they had a trial there, which we never had to cross over and testify to. There was enough information from their witnesses. They were able to prosecute the individuals.
Once, 3 wise men came out of the east, bringing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. This Christmas, 3 men of conscience have come from the north to give the gift of life, safety, and justice. For 2 poor women, that's miracle enough. While the 3 officers have never forgotten that night.
All she wanted to do was come across the United States with her daughter and get a better life for her. Maybe she made it someday, maybe she didn't. Who knows? The night that we rescued Rosa and other nights that we did good work, it all gave you a good feeling like we were doing something worthwhile. The federal government, nobody really cared. Nobody really cared. But the problem continued. It continues to this date. Same problems. Nobody's ever done anything about it.